Hi everybody, welcome back to Cabin Crafts and Simple Living. And today I thought I would do a little bit of colonial American weird history. We're going to talk about bundling. Now this appears backwards, I'm sure, on the screen, but it's called Bundling: Its Origins, Progress, and Decline in America by Henry Reed Stiles. And then at the bottom it says Banned in Boston, 1872. So this book was banned in Boston in 1872. So we're going to talk a little bit about what bundling is. And so there was two different types of bundling and what it was used for. So there was bundling boards and bundling bags. And if you've ever seen the movie The Patriot with Mel Gibson and Heath Ledger, you will see Heath Ledger is sewed up into a drawstring bag, and he is laying in bed with his girlfriend, and they are spending the night together, but he's sewn into a bag. That is what bundling was. And so it was a way to allow young lovers who were courting each other and who needed to get to know each other, the intimacy of laying in bed and chatting all night, or whatever, unchaperoned, and to get to know each other better. They would be fully clothed. Sometimes the young man would lay on the top of the covers and the young lady would lay under the covers. And especially if you think about if a girl lived in another village and the boy lived, say, 10 miles away, and he walked to her home on the weekend and would probably attend church service with them on Sunday. By the time he got to her house, 10 miles would take all day. So he was allowed to spend the night, and then they would go to services the next morning, and then he would go home. So you couldn't send him home after courting for a couple of hours because it's a whole day's walk away. So we're going to talk about bundling boards, and that was a long board that went down the center of the bed. So you can picture your bed if you had a big long board in between two people. And so that was also another way of separating men and women for bundling. And they would have a bundling board or a bundling bag or sack. So the thing that is the reason why they did this, and they believe it started in medieval Great Britain, and also in the Netherlands, is there was not enough beds, there was not enough rooms, there was not enough heating, and so you had to share beds, especially if you were going to put someone up for the night. And when Caesar first conquered Britain, and he came upon the Celtic people, and they lived in these big giant round houses, and you would see everyone sleeping on mats around the fire in the center of the room. Mothers, fathers, brothers, sisters, grandparents, neighbors might come over and, like I said, have walked a while, and they're all sleeping together on mats. The Romans, who were thought themselves very civilized, thought that the Celts were very barbarian, polygamous people, that everybody just slept with everybody, and they didn't know how many wives the men had, whatever. And it was just strictly lost in translation. They did not understand the tradition. Even in Asia, families sleep together a lot, still to this day. But I had an interesting trip one time. It's been over 20 years ago. I went out to Conner Prairie in Indiana, and I went into one of the buildings that was an inn, and where you could spend the night if you were a traveler, and they talked about bundling boards. And so you even had bundling boards in taverns and inns where people could spend the night, because again, lack of beds, and so they would use bundling boards in inns to separate, because sometimes you might have to have a female sleeping next to a male if there's not enough beds, and if the traveler is alone and the only other empty space is there's a female already in the bed. So they would put a bundling board right through the center of the bed. How awkward would that be today? You got to sleep with someone you don't even know, And so I thought this would be an interesting little weird history. In the Netherlands, it's called queesting, and it was to court a woman. So I'm going to read out of my little bundling book a couple of interesting quotes. So it says, in Holland, under the name of queesting, at night, the lover has access to his mistress after she is in bed, and upon an application to be admitted upon the bed, which is of course granted, he raises the quilt or rug, and in this state queasts, or enjoys a harmless chit-chat with her, and then retires. This custom meets with the perfect sanction of the most circumspect parents, and the freedom is seldom abused. The author traces its origin to the parsimony of the people whose economy considers fire and candles as superfluous luxuries in the long winter evenings. So again, there's another incident of you're not going to, burn more candles to sit in the living room and chit-chat. Everybody's sharing. You make enough candles to last the winter. And this would have, of course, obviously been in rural, lower class families. If you were upper New England high class, I'm sure you didn't have to bundle. So you had plenty of candles and probably plenty of beds. I'm going to go to some incidences of foreigners. So there's a British man. Let me make sure. So the reason why this book was banned in 1872 is because the author is kind of accusing New England of having a higher birth rate than other colonies, and he attributes it to bundling. So it says, "To this sagacious custom, therefore, do I chiefly attribute the unparalleled increase of the Yankee tribe. For it is certain fact, well authenticated by court records and parish registers, that whenever the practice of bundling prevailed, there was an amazing number of sturdy brats annually born unto the state, without the license of the law or the benefit of clergy. Neither did the irregularity of their birth operate in the least to their disparagement. On the contrary, they grew up a long-sided, raw-boned, hardy race of horse and whalers, woodcutters, fishermen, and peddlers, and strapping corn-fed wenches, who by their united efforts tended marvelously towards populating those notable tracts of country called Nantucket, Piscataway, and Cape Cod." I just think this is so funny. And the language that's used, raw-boned, hardy race of horse and whalers. Well, there you go. And so then he goes on to say that this is an unchristian custom of young men and maidens laying together in bed. Let me find another one. Okay. The example of this bundling, we may cite the case of Lieutenant Anbury, a British officer who served in America during the Revolutionary War, and whose letters preserve many sprightly and interesting pictures of the manners and customs of that period. In a letter dated at Cambridge, New England, November 20th, 1777, he thus speaks. "The night before we came to this town," and it's in parentheses, Williamstown, Massachusetts, "being quartered at a small log hut, I was convinced in how innocent a view the Americans look upon that indelicate custom they call bundling. Though they have remarkable good feather beds and are extremely neat and clean, still I preferred my hard mattress, as being accustomed to it. This evening, however, owing to the badness of the roads and the weakness of my mare, my servant had not arrived with my baggage at the time for retiring to rest. There being only 2 beds in the house, I inquired which I was to sleep in, when the old woman replied, 'Mr. Ensign,' and he says, here I should observe to you that the New England people are very inquisitive as to the rank you have in the army, and he was an ensign. So she said, 'Mr. Ensign, our Jonathan and I will sleep in this, and our Jemima and you shall sleep in that.' I was much astonished at such a proposal, and offered to sit up all night, when Jonathan immediately replied, 'Oh, Mr. Ensign, you won't be the first man our Jemima has bundled with, will it, Jemima?' When little Jemima, who by the by was a very pretty, black-eyed girl of about 16 or 17, archly replied, 'No, father, not by many, but it will be with the first Britner,' the name they gave to Englishmen. In this dilemma, what could I do? The smiling invitation of pretty Jemima, the eye, the lip, Lord have mercy, where am I going to? But wherever I may be going now, I did not go to bundle with her, in the same room with her father and mother, my kind host and hostess. I thought of that. I thought of more besides. To struggle with the passions of nature, to clasp Jemima in my arms, to do what, you'll ask? Why, to do nothing. For if amid all these temptations the lovely Jemima had melted into kindness, she had been an outcast from the world, treated with contempt, abused by violence, and left perhaps to perish. In other words, he's worried about her chastity and the ruining her reputation. So what a gentleman actually he was. No, Jemima, I could have endured all this to have been blessed with you, but it was too vast a sacrifice when you were to be the victim. He's like, where are my thoughts going? This girl's so pretty, black-eyed, pretty. And his mind starts wandering off to holding her in his arms, and then he looks at her lips and her eyes, and he's like, no, I'm not going to bundle with Jemima. I think that's adorable, actually. He at least had a very gentlemanly attitude and didn't want to make sure that her reputation wasn't ruined if he gave in to his passions. And so then it talks about the end of the, let's see. It said, the French wars were succeeded by that of the American Revolution, and not before the close of that struggle may the custom of bundling be said to have received its death blow, and even then it died hard. In other words, this was a tradition that people did not want to give up. But it says, then when I was researching deeper into it, it said it started fading in the late 17th century, or late 18th century, after the Revolutionary War, and better lodging became more accessible. So in other words, you had inns after the American Revolution, people were becoming more prosperous, and they could add on to their inns, add more beds. People could add more, people had more resources available in their own homes. They could maybe have a spare room with a spare bed, maybe affording an extra candle. But anyway, I thought you all would enjoy this little weird unknown history of bundling. I picked this up in Colonial, Williamsburg a few years ago when I went, and man, what a little gem this is. Because the language, as you could see from me reading there, the language is 1800s. I'm going to read one last thing, and this is called A New Bundling Song. So this is a rhyme, and it says, or a reproof to those young country women who follow that reproachful practice, and to their mothers for upholding them therein. Since bundling very much abounds in many parts and country towns, no doubt but some will spurn my song, and say I'd better hold my tongue. But none, I'm sure, will take offense, or deem my song impertinence, but only those who guilty be, and plainly hear their picture see. Some maidens say, if through the nation bundling should quite go out of fashion, courtship would lose its sweets, and they could have no fun till wedding day. It shan't be so, they rage and storm, and country girls in clusters swarm, and fly and buzz like angry bees, and vow they'll bundle when they please. Some mothers, too, will plead their cause, and give their daughters great applause, and tell them 'tis no sin nor shame, for we your mothers did the same. We hope the custom ne'er will alter, but wish its enemies a halter. Dissatisfaction great appeared in several places where they've heard their preachers bold aloud disclaim that bundling is a burning shame. This too was cause of direful rout, and talked and told of all about, that ministers should disapprove sparks courting in bed of love, so justified the custom more than e'er was heard or known before. The pulpit then, it seems, must yield, and female valor take the field, in places where their custom long increasing strength has grown so strong. When mothers herein bear a sway, and daughters joyfully obey, and young men highly pleased too, good Lord, what can't the devil do? Can this vile practice ne'er be broke? Is there no way to give a stroke, to wound it, or to strike it dead, and girls with sparks not go to bed? 'Twill strike them more than preacher's tongue to let the world know what they've done, and let it be in common fame, held up to view, a noted shame. Young miss, if this your practice be, I'll teach you now yourself to see. You plead you're honest, modest too, but such a plea will never do, for how can modesty consist with shameful practice such as this? I'll give your answer to the life. You don't undress like man and wife. That is your plea, I'll freely own. But who's your bondsman when alone? That further rules you will not break, and marriage liberties partake. Some really do, as I suppose, upon design keep on some clothes. And yet in truth I'm not afraid, for to describe a bundling maid, she'll sometimes say when she lies down, she can't be cumbered with a gown, and that the weather is so warm, to take it off can be no harm. The girl, it seems, had been at strift, for widest bosom to her shift. She gownless when the bed they're in, the spark naught feels but naked skin. But she is modest, also chaste, while only bare from neck to waist. And he of boasted freedom sings, of all above her apron strings. And where such freedoms great are shared, and further freedoms feebly bared, I leave for others to relate how long she'll keep her virgin state. Another pretty lass we'll scan, that loves to bundle with a man, for many different ways they take, through modest rules they all will break. Some clothes I'll keep on, she will say, for that has always been my way. Nor would I be quite naked found, with spark in bed for £1,000. But petticoats, I've always said, were never made to wear in bed. I'll take them off, keep on my gown, and then I dare defy the town to charge me with immodesty, while I so ever cautious be. The spark was pleased with his maid, of apprehension quick, he said. Her witty scheme was keen, he swore, lying in gown open before. Another maid, when in the dark, going to bed with her dear spark, she'll tell him that 'tis rather shocking to bundle in with shoes and stockings, nor scrupling, but she's quite discreet, lying with naked legs and feet, with petticoats so thin and short that she is scarce the better for it. But you will say that I'm unfair, that some who bundle take more care. For some we may with truth suppose bundle in bed with all their clothes. But bundlers' clothes are no defense. Unruly horses push the fence. A certain fact I'll now relate, that's true indeed without debate. A bundling couple went to bed with all their clothes from foot to head. That the defense might seem complete, each one was wrapped in a sheet. But oh, this bundlin's such a witch, the man of her did catch the itch, and so provoked was the wretch, that she of him a bastard catched. Ye bundle misses, don't ye blush? You hang your heads and bid me hush. If you won't tell me how you feel, I'll ask your sparks, they best can tell. But it is custom, you will say, and custom always bears the sway. If I won't take my sparks to bed, a laughing stock I shall be made. A vulgar custom, 'tis I own, admired by many, a slut and clown. But 'tis a method of proceeding, as much abhorred by those of breeding. You're welcome to the lines I've penned, for they were written by a friend, who will think himself quite well rewarded if this vile practice is discarded. They're sparks. So their sparks are their boyfriends. So that was a poem that was written to show the evils of bundling. And it did get out of favor. And then of course there's also a rebuttal poem that's a new song in favor of courting. So I'm not going to read all of that. But anyway, this was such a charming little book. And there's all kinds of poems in the end about bundling. Some of them are a little bawdy. But again, this was printed in 1872 in Boston, or it was banned in Boston in 1872. But it's called Bundling, Its Origins, Progress, and Decline in America by Henry Reed Stiles. And so it was banned in Boston because Boston's New England, and they felt it was an attack on New England people. And it probably was after reading that poem. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed that little history of bundling. And then here at the end, I just want to let my viewers know that I will be, how do I say this right, turning back on my devotional channel. I'm not putting anything on there. Just the old content will be on there, but I will make it available again. It's called Simply Devoted. And I will try to get that up and put the link at the bottom of this video in the description. The last video that I made about cockades and the Revolutionary War has sparked speaking of sparks, has sparked a rapid, unsubscribing of my channel because I mentioned about MAGA hats in causing trouble, like exactly like the incident with the cockade, different colored cockades. That accused one person that subscribed to me all along and even bought products from me, has unsubscribed and called me a fascist and a Nazi, which I can guarantee you that I am not. I don't hate that woman. I still like her and appreciate her viewership. And if she still wants to continue to watch me, she's welcome to do so. But I will tell you all right here, right now, up front, in case you don't know and you're new to my channel and you want to unsubscribe, you're more than welcome to. But I am unapologetically Christian, unapologetically patriotic, unapologetically conservative. I try not to let politics get into my craft and history videos, but sometimes it does, like in that incident where I used an example because it was the perfect example. But I don't hate anyone because of what color you are, what race you are, what sex you want to be. I don't hate you. I pray for everyone. I pray, the Bible tells us to pray for our enemies, and I do that. I don't have any enemies, but evidently I'm someone's enemy out there. So I just want to let you all know that that has caused me to double down. I was in church Sunday, and I got the greatest compliment from one of my son's friends that I could ever get. And I was talking to him, and I said, I'm afraid about something. I don't remember what it was. And he looked at me, and he said, Candy, when have you ever been afraid of anything? And I'm like, you're right. I don't have to be afraid. I'm not afraid. If I lose every subscriber I have right now, I will start back again from scratch. I don't make money at this. I've already told you all that. As a matter of fact, if you want me to be very, very transparent, I make between $500 and $600 a year. A lot of times less. I use that money to go buy more supplies to show more craft videos. And if you want to know what your favorite YouTuber is making, you can find that out. There is a website called socialblade.com, and I'll try and remember and post that in the link at the bottom in the description. But you can click on their YouTube, TikTok, different social media platforms, and find out exactly how much people that you follow are making. And I suggest you do that. Transparency is a good thing. Accountability is a good thing. So again, I hope you all enjoyed this video about a little known history of bundling in early America. And if you're not subscribed, I ask you, if you liked this and my other content, to please subscribe. 75% of my viewers are not subscribed, and it would help me to get back the ones that I lost. But whether I do or not, that's up to God. He's my ultimate authority. I'm not answerable to any man. So God bless you all. God bless our troops. God bless America. And pray for our president and our leaders. Bye-bye.